Hello and welcome back to the Fruit of Grisaia, Yumiko's route. In the last episode, Michiru's problems with her health seem to have been cured by just letting her get some fresh air. Though we, of course, now know that there is something far deeper inside of her. We also then saw a strange situation out of Mihamar Academy, or rather at Mishima Cape, the local town and community nearby where Mihamar Academy is placed. Sakaki Yumiko, the tutor of Mihamar Academy, was staring through the window of a crepe shop, essentially a bakery. And while she was looking at crepes, the rest of the students from Mihamar Academy was looking at Yumiko, making up weird theories about what Yumiko could be thinking about. Yumiko admitted to Yuuji that she was just looking for a crepe but couldn't decide. Let's continue. This concludes our investigator's report concerning Sakaki Yumiko-san. Although she demonstrated a pronounced rejection impulse on first contact, the two have since established a comparatively cordial relationship. Continuing the investigation should... That's enough. Alright. Qa'Rajh-san, wasn't it? Thank you for the update. I believe I now have a firm grasp of the recent development in that ungrateful child's social life. I see. In that case, please allow me to excuse myself. Don't be in such a hurry. Is there something else? It seems that my intentions haven't quite gotten across to you people. Allow me to clarify. I wasn't asking your organization to carry out a mere character investigation of my daughter. By which you mean what, exactly? Are you really under the impression that I constructed that ridiculously large facility just to provide my daughter and a handful of other problem children with a carefree living environment? I expect her to reflect on the idiotic stunt that nearly landed her in a courtroom. I expect her to reform into an upright human being prepared to join our East Beach Express group, and I need this to happen as soon as possible. But from what you're telling me, the lot of them are idly enjoying a stress-free communal life, while Yumiko herself shows no sign whatsoever of repenting. I've waited long enough and now I want results. For that purpose, I expect that investigator you people sent in... What was his name again? It's Kasami Yuuji. President Sakaki, allow me to reiterate that Kasami is not merely an investigator. He is a student first and foremost, acting on our behalf in private. Yes, right, that Kasami so-and-so individual. Since you have him in place, I expect you to make use of him to influence events in a more favorable direction. Specifically, I want Yumiko to correct her antisocial behavior, indicate her willingness to do as she's told, and return home obediently. You may be under some misunderstanding in this regard, but our organization isn't in the business of counseling or brainwashing. Naturally, we do occasionally engage in such things in the course of operation, but as I'm sure you can appreciate, even for a child of the Sakaki family, national assets can't be used quite that freely in pursuit of personal interests. Qa'Rajh-san, listen carefully. This isn't a mere per-family squabble. Our East Beach group has supported this country for 100 years, and it is absolutely critical that we have a cornerstone for the next generation ready to smoothly inherit that tradition. I doubt anyone would begrudge you a slight contribution of excess resource in pursuit of that goal. The taxes we pay in combination with numerous voluntary gratuities makes those operations of yours a great deal easier to carry out, as I'm sure an individual of your stature must be aware. Outside of the very lowest rank, there isn't a single person in our organization who doesn't appreciate the significance of your contribution, President Sakaki. Oh, so you do understand. Well then, not to rush, but do you have any clever idea as to how we might encourage Yumiko to reform her conduct? That's a rather sudden request, sir. Well then, how about this? I'll arrange for Yumiko to be attacked. A constant sense of danger should snap her out of that tranquil indolence quickly enough. Once she's gained an appreciation for how frightening the world outside her sheltered bubble can be, I expect she'll prove more than receptive to my words. How about it? A good start, don't you think? What's the matter? Do you have an objection? No, we'll support you in that strategy. I do have one additional proposal, however. A proposal? Yes, I'd like to have our investigator Kasami Yuuji act as your daughter's bodyguard. What are you talking about? How are we supposed to frighten her if she's being protected? Respectfully, a sudden threat out of nowhere would likely be more confusing than anything else. But by assigning her a bodyguard first and slowly escalating an atmosphere of crisis... I see. You're saying it would add a greater sense of reality to the danger. Yes. Very well. I'll leave that element entirely to your discretion, Harude-san. Of course. Well then, please excuse me. So we actually saw Sakaki's father once before, where Sakaki hid on the roof of the school building, unable for her father to actually get in contact with her. Back then, it wasn't obvious why Yumiko was hiding up there, other than that her relationship with her father was strained, to say the least. Now it becomes more clear. Well, there's no such thing as a fun job. Of course, you'll find plenty of people willing to declare that work brings them nothing but joy, but look around them or underneath them and you'll always find scowling people covered in mud. More often than not, the person who loves their job is really just the biggest slacker in the office. Work is unpleasant and often boring. That's why they pay you to do it. If something you were doing in the first place just naturally becomes your job, you're either a genius, an idiot, or incredibly lucky.
Hey, Oni-chan!
What?
What's the deal with that job of yours anyway?
Unfortunately, I'm none of the above. By most standards, my occupation is just about the last thing you could describe as fun. It requires steady discipline, there's no tolerance for failure, but even in success you'll never see the spotlight. On top of it all, it demands specialist expertise, extensive experience, and training even when off duty. It's a little hard to summarize, but I guess you could call me a craftsman of sorts.
A craftsman? Like a sushi chef? Or one of those guys who makes the little fight fittings on folding fans? That sort of thing?
Well, I guess those would be typical examples, but craftsman is a pretty vague term. There's quite a range of people who fall under that umbrella. Although you tend to think of those working with material objects, as in Makina's example, there are some who engage in more abstract forms of workmanship. And the craftsmen in my line of work deal in the most funnest thing of all. Anyway, what's with the sudden interest in my job after all this time? Hardly that interesting a subject.
Actually, everybody in school is hella curious.
That a fact?
It's just as Maki-chan says. Indeed.
Not that I'm constantly acting, but I have been trying to keep my behavior fairly normal as to avoid projecting the atmosphere characteristic of my occupation. Even so, it seems there's a degree of stiff artificiality to my performance that may have an equally unsettling effect on my classmates. A deeply regrettable failure on my part.
Yeah, that's right. I can't really tell what your deal is, you know? You throw these big words around all casually and you can run like 50 miles without breaking a sweat, and you're always making fun of me.
Michiro-sama, I feel obligated to point out that the final item on your list does not indicate a trait peculiar to Takasami-san.
What? That's not true! I mean, the guy's always talking to me like I'm an idiot, or calling me a newly discovered mystery life form, or whatever. I swear I wouldn't know tact if it hit him over the head.
Well, I'm afraid Yuji's commentary regarding Michiru is mostly justified, if a bit on the tactless side.
Wait, now you, Amani! Enemies all around me! Shoot, Lotus!
The phrase is "et tu, brute." Michiru-sama, I'm terribly sorry, but it would be best for you to stay silent for the moment.
Huh? Oh. There, nothing to be shocked speechless about. Here, I'll give you a nice banana to gnaw on. What the heck? Now you're making fun of me too, Makina! Why a freaking banana anyway? Am I supposed to be a banana freak just because my hair is yellow?
A yellowish hair color leading to a fondness for bananas? What an exceptionally novel hypothesis, Michiru-sama. At this moment, I am truly glad I chose to follow you.
If you're following me, then how about backing me up once in a while, Uki?
Uki? Amazing, you're truly without peer, Michiru-sama. So, are you guys done asking me questions now? There haven't been many cases since my arrival in this school, when I was grateful to Michiru at this school but her ability to rapidly derail conversations is truly welcome at times like these. But just as I'm about to wrap things up and make my leave, a cell phone rings in my pocket. Unfortunate timing. I slide it out and check the caller ID panel. JB, huh? Most contact from JB in any form means a business discussion. Accordingly, I'm always careful not to answer calls when the others are in earshot. I leave the dorm and walk a few paces before hitting the answer button and bringing the phone to my ear. It's me. You'll have better luck finding the proverbial free lunch than a job that's genuinely fun. And mine is certainly no exception to the rule. When you live in a communal residence, you're always going to find some people you hit it off with and some who are harder to handle. Ideally, you find points of compromise and stay on cordial terms even with difficult residents. One of those underappreciated little skills that gets you ahead in life. Unfortunately, I don't possess it. In this dorm, I guess Amano would be first on the list in terms of friendliness, although in her case it's less hitting it off and more hitting on. Next in line would be Sachi, but she's got some abnormal quirks that can be tricky to handle, so her rank falls slightly. Makina and Michiru have a hard time even holding coherent conversations, making it a little hard to evaluate if we think in similar ways. But if I humor them with a little attention, they'll start chattering away all on their own, so in a sense they're easy enough to deal with. I might not be blessed with much in the way of social skills, but even I can interact with those four without particular difficulty. This girl, however, is a different story. We were on seriously hostile footing from the very start, and our frequent chance encounters in the dorm haven't really helped. There's still a tense sense of tension in the air when we run into each other. Granted, that's a bit of an improvement compared to the way she used to slash at me with a box cutter on sight, but our attitudes remain stubbornly standoffish. There's no sign of real thaw in the relations. Are the others out today? Looking around the area in a slightly forced way, Sakaki mutters those words without particularly directing them at me. Amano's out shopping with Makina, said they'll be back this evening. The principal called Sachi to run an errand for the school. I haven't seen Michiru all day. When I answer, she glances at my face for a brief moment. I see. The conversation dies there. Sakaki once again begins moving her eyes across the pages of a novel I'm sure she's already finished reading. We may not talk much, but I've learned enough about Sakaki over the last few months to say that we've got a surprising amount in common. We both enjoy reading and don't mind spending time alone. We are both prone to mull things over in languid sky-gazing sessions on the rooftops. But similarity doesn't have much to do with hitting it off with someone. When it's two similar unsociable types like us, it's easy for conversations to stagnate awkwardly. Asymmetrical interactions where people complement each other through contrast actually make for a much more harmonious atmosphere. Every once in a while, Sakaki's eyes flick up off the page to shoot a quick glance in my direction. Might sound like a girl in love trying to secretly keep her eye on a crush, but the reality is less idyllic. She seems to be trying to figure out how to extricate herself from this awkward situation. Although Sakaki is clearly bothered by the heavy silence in the air, I don't find it that uncomfortable. After piling the 4 books I brought from my room on the table, I lean back on one elbow and begin to work my way through the first. It'll probably be more considerate for me to take the initiative and leave, but owing to a certain circumstances, that's not going to happen this time. Excuse me. Apparently reaching the limits of her endurance, Sakaki abruptly drops her book onto the coffee table and stands up. Before I can even react, she turns to 3 o'clock and starts to walk away. Looking up from my book, I call out a question before she can make her getaway. You going somewhere? Sakaki's progress pauses, but after a moment she walks off without so much as turning around. Her slippers squeak against the hallway floor with an orderly rhythm reminiscent of a soldier on the march. Alright then. Snapping my book shut, I rise quietly from my seat and begin to walk off in the same direction. With a steady, regular gait, just like Sakaki's, following in her footsteps. You want me to play bodyguard? Yes, Sakaki Yumiko-san, specifically. You're familiar with her, aren't you? I'm familiar with her name and face. Other than that, my information is pretty limited. No kidding. I was convinced you'd be learning all sorts of things. I have no idea what you're trying to imply, but she's just a classmate, and we're not particularly close. In that case, I suppose we'll have to educate you somewhat. Here, these are the case materials. JB picked up a thick file from her desk and passed it to me. It contained a bulky bundle of A4-sized documents. The first page had a photograph of Sakaki's face, along with some simple bullet points concerning her background. I did receive a very basic overview of the girl's personal circumstances when her father visited the school. At a glance, those pages didn't contain much beyond what I had already heard from the principal, but the fact that we had a file on her in the first place reinforced my impression of Sakaki's importance. I see. With a background like this, I suppose a bodyguard or two might be warranted. Indeed, she may be a normal classmate to you, but the circumstances surrounding her are tangled and potentially dangerous.
So it would seem.
Numerous parties have their eyes on her as the only child of the East Beach Group's president, and since the girl seems particularly fond of solitude, the risk of her potential kidnapping can no longer be ignored.
Makes sense so far, but you want me to protect her by myself?
She'd likely object to any elaborate measures, and even if we could assign 10 random security police to look after her, I doubt they'd be worth one of you.
Don't overestimate me too much. I'll end up biting you in the ass.
I'm not in the habit of overestimating anyone, Yuuji. As of 1200 hours today, you are to officially commence this duty. Should disturbances arise, you are authorized to suppress them with force.
Understood.
The reason I've begun poking my nose into Sakaki's life to the point of following her around is not a manifestation of any personal feelings on my part, but rather the result of a perfectly legitimate order handed down to me in a professional capacity. Since I've been employed in this role, I fully intend to approach it seriously. In my line of work, your orders have absolute priority, even when a job happens to involve a close friend or a relative. And protecting a classmate from approaching threats is something I do without being asked. So I didn't have any real reason to refuse this particular position. Through this rather abrupt sequence of events, I assumed the role of Sakaki Yumiko's bodyguard, without her knowledge. However, although I'd anticipated this as much from the start, the mission in question quickly encountered a number of practical difficulties.
Yo, where you off to?
For some reason you've been asking me that question a great deal lately.
Have I?
In any case, where I'm going, if anywhere, has absolutely nothing to do with you. Goodbye. Excuse me, you are aware that I can't leave when you're standing there, yes?
Yeah, so where you headed again? Didn't catch it the first time.
You're being extremely persistent. Wherever I'm heading is none of your business, is it? Will you please just step aside?
Why? Going somewhere in a hurry?
I'm going down by the station to your used bookstore where I'm planning to buy a book I had my eye on for a while. Titled A History of Russian Folk Instrument. Author Qa'Rajh. Satisfied now?
That's so. Good to know. Alright, you're free to go.
Listen to me, it's got nothing to do with you, and I certainly don't need your permission.
Okay then, let's go.
What, you again?
Why the again? Not like we run across each other that often.
Perhaps it's just a coincidence, but I have the feeling these one-on-one encounters are becoming much more frequent lately.
Just your imagination. By the way, you headed anywhere in particular?
What on earth does it matter?
No, somewhere you can tell me about. Everything alright?
If you hadn't noticed, I was trying to ignore you and walk off. Is there some reason you went out around and cut me off?
Well, you didn't answer the question. Pretty rude.
Look, can't you, I don't know, make an educated guess about the circumstances from my attitude?
Those circumstances are what I'm asking about. If there's some kind of problem, then...
I'm visiting the... That is very small. I think it's his bathroom. Now, why do you understand why I didn't feel like explaining myself to you?
Yeah, I believe I have a solid grasp of the situation. My apologies. Enjoy your trip.
Aw, Yumiko is adorable when she's embarrassed.
Perfect Qa'Rajh. She's really on guard. Well, not that you can blame her.
From the moment I began putting my instructions into practice, Sakaki's gotten a great deal more wary around me. The reason, of course, is my abrupt intrusion into her bubble of isolation. It's entirely understandable. When someone who hasn't demonstrated much interest in you suddenly develops an acute interest in your movements, anybody would get a little suspicious. But since I'm acting on orders here, retreating outside of your comfort zone isn't an option. 2, 3, 4. Alright then, I'll be buying this every last year.
She's for real? Come on, Sachin, if you land there, the game ain't even gonna be competitive. Hold on, Sachin. Are you buying up the railroad? Wait, no, I'll seriously go bankrupt. Cut me a break here.
I feel your pain, Michiru-sama, I truly do. Through my seizure of this railroad line, your last glimmer of hope will be utterly snuffed out. No matter how the dice fall, only a life of exploitation at my hand awaits you. But there's nothing to be done. This is a game. Should I stay my hand out of mercy, the time we have invested into earnest competition would be rendered truly meaningless. Do you understand? I take this action for you, Michiru-sama. It may be painful for now, but please grit your teeth and endure.
Where the heck did you pick up that pain is pleasure philosophy? You sound like a freaking dominatrix. I mean, forget enduring or whatever. If you steal that from me, it's just game over. Come on!
I'll buy it all.
Yeah!
After returning from class, I was immediately invited to participate in playing a board game of Machinas. Not that I was given much choice in the matter. It's based off a simple dice movement game. Depending on the square you land on, there are options to purchase stocks or property, and with development you can extract rent on others who pass through. That's the basic outline anyway. Machina seemed pretty confident she'd win, but once we actually got started, Sachi picked up the strategy with fearsome speed. She's been slowly, cruelly squeezing the cash out of us like juice from a grapefruit.
Yeah, mega sadist, Sajin. Jiro seriously lost a road in life through life. 1 would be Sachi, 2 would be Yuuji, 3 is Machina, 4, 5, 6, all Sachi. Okay, it's no good, I'm trapped. Wow, it's true, wherever you land, your money's going straight down the drain.
Why don't you just sell off those stocks you've been hoarding away so stubbornly? They're only slowing you down.
These stocks are my money tree. The bonus from cashing them in at the end of the game can totally flip the rankings on their head.
With my purchase of the railroad, Michiru-sama's stocks have crashed rather severely. Utterly wiped out, in fact. Not even worth the paper they're printed on.
No!
In particular, Michiru's being economically annihilated on a scale that reminds one of the old Soviet Union's downfall. Guess her luck's just terrible, but it seems like every time the girl makes a move she ends up falling into a trap of Sachi's and forking over her liquid cash. If this game were taking place in a mahjong salon or something, I'd be seriously wondering about weighted dice at this point.
Just forget it. Struggle on as best as you can, everyone. My life is already over.
With these assets secured, it seems I'm well on my way to another victory.
I want to chip away at Sachin's resources somehow, but thanks to a certain doofus who keeps feeding the cash, it's like spitting into the wind. My stocks. My poor, innocent stocks.
The outcome of the battle's already been decided. Just give in.
In that moment, just as we all stood on the brink of abandoning resistance against our dominant foe, Sakaki strides quietly out the front door without so much as a glance in our direction.
I'm going out for a while.
Hold on, Oni-chan. We're still in the middle of the game.
Yeah, just remember something I had to do for work. Sorry to skip out early. You 3 finished the game without me, alright?
Just the 3 of us? What are we supposed to do with your stuff?
How about one of you take my position? It'll be a good exercise in parallel processing, right? Anyway, see you later.
We ain't playing a video game here, you know. Not like we can switch a flip. We can flip a switch to put you in calm mode. What a freaking pain.
Well, work has to take priority, Magi-chan. Why don't we just wrap this up peacefully by declaring me the winner?
My stocks! My stocks!
I'm back, so, I just saw Yuuji run off. He going somewhere?
Ran off to God knows where chasing a woman's butt.
A woman? Who's that exactly?
Old bony butt, the broody.
What, Sakaki-san? You'd better watch it with that. Things would get seriously ugly if she overheard. Shortly after Sakaki-san left the dorm, Kasami-san followed without giving a specific reason for his departure. Does Yuuji really like his butts that scrawny? Gotta say, he's been acting pretty weird around Sakaki-san lately. I have to agree with you on that. He's been expressing uncharacteristic curiosity about her destination every time they come across each other.
Just the other day, I saw him drilling Yuuji when she was trying to get her to go to the frickin' bathroom. She weren't too pleased.
It's a little hard to believe when we're talking about Yuuji, but frankly, that sounds kind of stalkerish.
Ah, this path's hopeless. No, but this one's even worse.
Incidentally, is there some reason Michiru is moaning like an invalid? This and... I was out of that as well. Talking to herself softly, Sakaki picks her way through a shelf of art supplies. Her outing to the station area was evidently an extremely minor errand. Seems like she's just replenishing her stock of artistic materials. Michiaki gets a fair amount of traffic, but it's still a small city. There are plenty of inconspicuous blind spots and back alleys where threats could be lurking. I keep a diligent eye on Sakaki from behind, checking for suspicious characters among the other customers and watching for any vans nearby that might be used for a grab and run as she leaves. Oh, it's gotten rather dark out. After killing a little time rummaging around in a used bookstore, Sakaki glances up at the dark purple sky and makes her way out of the store. Slipping her newly purchased paperback into a paper bag with her art supplies, she sets off on the road back to school with the same steady pace as always. Following from a distance, I jot down a few quick notes on today's events in a pocket-sized memo book. Abnormalities in the subject's vicinity, none worth noting, I guess. Today in particular, everything seemed reassuringly normal. Well, that's it for this episode. So, in the next episode, we shall see how Yuuji's new position as Yumiko's bodyguard goes. But until then, take care.